Happy Monday to you. We are continuing our Monday Moments this week and talking about the friend of the ministry, a friend that gives the gift of connection. The gift of connection is single mindedness with the like minded. Single mindedness with the like minded. That's what happened with Elijah and Elisha. And boy, did Elijah need a friend. Many people hated him to the point that he believed and told God, I am the only one left. And then in 1 Kings 18, he's greeted by King Ahab and he says, oh, there you are, troubler of Israel. And then in 1 Kings 21, he says, oh, you found me, my enemy. So if the king hated him, so must everyone else. That's what Elijah believed until God said, stop having your pity party. God was merciful and he fed him and he nurtured him, but he said, stop having your pity party. There are actually 7,000 that still believe and honor me. When you think about it, 7,000 is 7, the perfect number, multiplied by 1,000. Think about that. God was saying, there's perfection. It's so good. It's so numerous. Stop worrying. I am God and I am in control. There are 7,000, perfect number, multiplied by 1,000 that still honor and call upon me as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Take a breath, Elijah. And one of those happened to be Elisha, a wealthy farmer who would abandon it all for the sake of the call. Let's look at his call. So Elisha went from there and found Elisha, son of Japhat. Okay, this is in 1 Kings. He was plowing, 1 Kings 19, as a matter of fact. He was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, and he himself was driving the 12th pair. Elijah went up to him and threw his cloak around him. The emphasis on him plowing the 12th pair, that detail is so important because it shows us that he was actually from a relatively prosperous family. They could have 12 pairs of oxen. The hairy mantle that Elijah throws over Elisha is a garment distinctive of a type, get that, a type of prophet. The transfer of the garment signifies the transmission of the mission. And not only that, the ability to accomplish it. It was a custom known in Mesopotamian circles. This wouldn't have been unknown culturally. So, verse 20, Elisha then left his oxen and ran after Elijah. Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye, he said, and then I will come with you. Go back, Elijah replied. What have I done to you? So, what Elijah is saying to him is, it's not a rebuke of sorts, but it's more of a clarification. Not a rebuke, as I've heard before, but a clarification. He's saying to Elisha, you understand you are accepting a new way of life. Being a prosperous farmer compared to a man of the ministry, a prophet in Old Testament times, you are going to have very different lifestyle now. So you understand what you're getting into. God is calling you. Are you going to abandon it all for the sake of the call? Let's see what Elisha does. So Elisha left him and went back. He took his yoke of oxen and slaughtered them. He burned the plowing equipment to cook the meat and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he set out to follow Elijah and became his servant. Elisha burned his tools of the trade as a statement that he was not turning back. I am not turning back. I receive this. I receive this transmission of the mission, and I will follow it till the end. A complete departure from his past. He even threw a party for his neighbors. Have you ever thought about this? This is a thank offering. Go back to Leviticus. Go back to Deuteronomy. This is a thank offering. He's saying, I am thankful for the call of my life, and I will do everything I can to fulfill this call. Now we move on to 2 Kings. 2 Kings, and I'm going to read quite a bit, so stick with me. When the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, so Elisha has been following Elijah. Elijah and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal, and Elisha said to Elisha, stay here. The Lord has sent me to Bethel. Notice, but Elisha said, as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you. So they went down to Bethel. The company of prophets at Bethel came out to Elisha and asked, do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today? Elisha responds, yes, I know, so be quiet. Then Elijah said to him, stay here, Elisha. The Lord has sent me to Jericho. Now he's going to a different place. And Elisha replies, as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you. So they went to Jericho. So this is number 2. The company of the prophets at Jericho went up to Elisha. Boy, this is getting old, isn't it? Or it's driving home the point, and asked him, do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today? Yes, I know, he replied, so be quiet. Then Elijah said to him, stay here. The Lord has sent me to the Jordan. And he replied, as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you. So the two of them walked on. 50 men from the company of prophets went and stood at a distance, facing the place where Elijah and Elisha had stopped at the Jordan. Elisha took his cloak and he rolled it up and struck the water with it. The water divided to the right and to the left, and the two of them crossed over on dry land. This is very repetitive. If you see the repetition of what? The Israelites crossing the Jordan, right? They crossed the Jordan when they left Egypt. They crossed the Jordan right before they went into the promised land. And now here is the same exact sequence. God is trying to show us something here. To signal the transition from Elijah to Elisha, 2 Kings reports their farewell visit, if you will, with Elijah's apprentices or his sons or his followers. Two groups of prophets receive and relay the same message to Elisha. They're saying Elijah is going to be removed today. Elisha, though, is determined. He's determined to follow his master. I will not leave you. I will not forsake you. He's not going to compromise his vow, even though he is repeatedly challenged by the what? The commission. He had the transmission of being called as a prophet. Now he's being commissioned into that position. And what did Elijah do? He had put the garment on him. But accepting the garment, please hear me, accepting the garment doesn't mean you get to wear it when you want. Let me say that again. Accepting the garment doesn't mean you get to wear it when you want, when it feels suitable to you and when it doesn't feel suitable to you. Meaning you figuratively wear it all the time. I don't get to choose when to be a pastor and when not to be a pastor, when to be a teacher and when not to be a teacher, when to be a mission hearted person and when not to be a mission hearted person. I wear that garment all the time. Because Jesus never leaves me, nor does he forsake me. He's there in times of joy and he's there in times of sorrow. It's not for us to choose. One, because we are not God. Two, because we live in a fallen world. God sometimes holds his hand back, even when he doesn't want to. Even when he doesn't want to. But we don't get to choose. But we do get to choose how we will respond in those times, in times of sorrow and in times of joy. We get the choice in how we respond. Will you determine to follow and refuse to compromise? Let's see what Elisha did. Verse 9. When they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you?" So now here Elijah is telling him, now after all these other people have told him, "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit." Elisha replied, "You have asked a difficult thing." Elijah said, "Yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it will be yours. Otherwise, it will not." As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them. And Elijah went up into heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw this and cried out, "My father, my father, the chariots and the horsemen of Israel." And Elisha saw him no more. Then he took hold of his garment and he tore it in two, a sign of mourning. Elisha then picked up Elijah's cloak that had fallen from him and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. He took the cloak that had fallen from Elijah and struck the water with it. He did not hesitate. He did not wait. He knew the transmission, he knew the commission, and he was ready to walk in the mission. Thank you, Lord. "Where now is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" he asked. When he struck the water, it divided to the right and to the left, and he crossed over. The company of prophets from Jericho who were watching said, "The spirit of Elijah is resting on Elisha." And they went to meet him and bowed to the ground before him. Elisha asking for a double share is not presumptuous. That's how I always interpreted it. Like, how bold, how dare you do this? But it's rather, it is seeking an inheritance just as the firstborn son it deserves is required. It's a legal binding covenant. The firstborn son receives a double inheritance of the fathers and all the other children then from there on. We've talked about that before. So Elisha asking for that is not him asking for a double portion of the prophetic spirit like I've heard before, which is good. I mean, it makes sense, but it's really asking for a right to the office of Elijah. Get that? He's asking for a right to the office of Elijah. And if you understand Jewish culture, you understand what all that entailed. It was so much more. The same demonstration of divine protection And in the returning of the crossing of the Jordan, he did not hesitate. He was bold in his faith, believing in the transmission and the commission, and now he was going ready to fulfill the mission. He dropped the cloak in the Jordan, just like Elijah did. And he said, I am ready, Lord. Here I am. Send me. And he, because God parted it, just like he did for Elijah, he was shown that he was the true successor of Elijah. When a dramatic yet mysterious event took Elijah from the earth, right? Elisha cried out, my father, the chariots of Israel and the horsemen. And then, you know what? When you read through 2 Kings and you see some years later, King Joash will say the same thing about Elisha. It's like bookends to his life. He says it about Elijah, and then King Joash says it about him. What an honor. There are so many miracles in the Elijah and Elisha story that show that God's power was with Elisha, just like it was with Elijah. Blessing to those who bless you and curses to those who don't. Don't mess with God's anointed. That's still true today. That is still true today. Don't mess with God's anointed. That doesn't mean don't have boundaries. That doesn't mean let someone steamroll you and that's in leadership or make you a placemat. Don't be that. But also, don't speak ill of who God has anointed. Don't speak ill of your leadership. They're not going to be perfect. As long as you know they have integrity and they're following God with all their heart, then do what you're called to do. Don't speak ill of God's anointed. And if hairiness is associated with it, then you know what? Especially the prophetic, we see Elijah with his hairy mantle and his cloak, just like John the Baptist. Well, Elisha was a little bit the opposite. Do you remember the story where Elisha is walking along and these young men start taunting him, and God allows a bear to come out and maul them? A bear mauling them is not really that different than a whale swallowing someone. God's leaders are protected by God. Remember that. Be that. And realize that godly leaders are what gave Israel strength. It wasn't the mighty armies in the armor. It was godly leaders like the prophets of Israel, those who are willing to stand up no matter the ridicule, no matter the taunting, no matter all the things. Poor Jeremiah, Isaiah. Think about all the prophets, and Hosea, all the prophets. No matter what, those were the strength. Those people were the backbone of Israel. Well, Elijah means God. Yahweh is God. Elijah means Yahweh is God. And Elisha means God is salvation. So if you put that together, you realize the mission of God. Yahweh preserves his people because it's his sovereignty, and he revises the plans of nations no matter what. It is never too late. He can revise the plans of your community. He can revise the plans of your family. He can revise what the enemy has in store for you. Yahweh, God, the creator of the universe, is salvation. Salvation to you and your household today, just like Cornelius. Elijah and Elisha both loved God and prophecy. They both had a vision to serve God for the sake of Israel. Both expected to do great things for God. Both acknowledged the gifts God had given them, and both were committed to help each other. This is the gift of commitment. You know what? I see something in you. I am going to help transmit that. I'm going to help commit that, and I'm going to help you to fulfill that mission. And that's what Elijah did for Elisha. I am going to help you fulfill the purpose God has on your life. And that's the case throughout centuries. The one recorded quality of people that were able to go beyond all other people was a single-mindedness. Good or bad, we can think of some bad examples, but those bad examples show us that those people knew. They had a sense of purpose. They were willing to sacrifice it all for that purpose and pay the price necessary. We saw that in Paul's life last week. He was willing to forsake it all for the Gentiles. He said, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. Philippians 1. Are you that person? For many of us, God is present in our lives, but his lordship is kind of often resisted or rejected from us. There's others of us that God is prominent in our lives, and there's just certain areas where we keep a tight fist or a tight grip on, like finances or our marriage. And then there's others that are where God is preeminent in their life. He is the focus of their being, and he is the focus of their pursuits. They acknowledge the sufficiency and the supremacy. Oh, wow. He's supreme. The supremacy by relegating all rule and authority to God. Is God present in your life? Is he prominent in your life? Or is he preeminent in your life? In other words, what I'm asking you is, do you live a compartmentalized life where each area, yeah, this one I give to God, this one I don't. I have this area, it's in a box. Jesus, no, he's not in that box. Or is he the center, the hub of your wheel? Is he the center of your life? Since we belong to Christ, we no longer have the right to self-determination. We have been bought with a price, and we are called to glorify God in our bodies. 1 Corinthians. You see, Elisha was able to give it all up for the sake of the call because he knew his purpose. He literally had his hand to the plow when God called him out, and he was ready to let it all go. Wealth, family, everything for God's mission. He was ready. As stewards, we manage the possessions of God, and as ambassadors, we manage the affairs of God, the affairs of another, capital A. Are you doing that? The King owns everything. Whether you allow him to or not, he really does. He is the creator of the universe. He owns everything. And we are to serve him by representing him to the world. If you live a centered life, then you realize that your everything is only because he gave it to you in order for you to give everything for him. Are you willing to give everything for Jesus Christ, the one who saved you, the one who came back, the one who restores, the one who heals, the one who loves you unconditionally? We must present ourselves to God as servants with no conditions, no strings attached. Are we administering our affairs and our possessions as though God is in control of them? Or are we keeping tight grip? Are we still in control of them? The pattern of our lives is shaped by our decisions. And the greatest of these decisions is this: am I the Lord of my life, or is He the Lord of my life? Am I the Lord of my life? Examine your heart. Or is He the Lord of your life? In other words, do I seek to rule or submit to the rule of Christ by denying myself, by doing what He wants me to do rather than what I want to do? Whether we realize it or not, we face this choice multiple times a day. We have this choice. Our answer to this question will determine how we manage our time, our talents, our resources, our relationships, and how we manage the truth. Think about that. Like Elijah's friendship with Elisha, we have opportunities to manage our time, our treasures, our relationships, the truth of who God is. And we can help another be committed to Christ and fulfill the mission of their life. I hope this has been an encouragement to you. The gift of commitment. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face shine upon you and give you grace.